when AI became popular and we knew that it was going to change the way that really everybody does their work, I think the fear was that it would replace people. But the number one thing about the finance business is that it is a people business. And there's a really high premium on professional advice. So the way it has changed the business thus far has been really for financial advisors and their teams, helping them be more efficient. But as far as advice for clients, there's still a very big human element to that because wealth is personal and emotional for people.
Welcome back to the 8th Gear podcast, where we dive deep into mindset, strategies, stories on how to make you a much more successful business person and how to have success in life. I'm here with my co-host, Sabran Walker.
Hello.
And our guest, Theresa Bursey.
Hello.
Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So Theresa, why don't you tell the audience about yourself?
Absolutely. I work for Raymond James Financial. I've been in finance for over 2 decades. This is the second firm that I've worked for in the business. And I've done lots of different things, asset management, private banking, but all throughout my career, I've worked very close with financial advisors to help them improve client outcomes and grow their business.
You're in a very interesting industry in which I feel like AI is going to significantly affect it. Will it?
In a way, yes, but not how most people think. So when AI became popular and we knew that it was going to change the way that really everybody does their work, I think the fear was that it would replace people. But the number one thing about the finance business is that it is a people business. And there's a really high premium on professional advice. So the way it has changed the business thus far has been really for financial advisors and their teams, helping them be more efficient. And some of the day-to-day practices and engagement like client onboarding, reviews, communications, that can all be automated through the AI systems. Another way that we're starting to see advisors save themselves time is through note-taking. We would take out a notebook, we would jot down the notes, then they have to go back to their assistant, make sure that they capture those notes, send the recap out to the client. That could take a day or so to do. Now you can do that in 30, 45 minutes because you're recording the conversation through AI with the permission of the client. It's giving you a summary. You can adjust that summary to make sure that it's accurate. We know AI is not perfect. And then that goes into the systems for your notes and any executive summaries that you're following up on. But as far as advice for clients, there's still a very big human element to that because wealth is personal and emotional for people. And that's why the value of a financial advisor still remains intact. And it's really AI, using that system of AI that helps them just be more efficient in doing so.
And there's like no fear that'll be just completely dominated by robo-advisors?
Well, look what we saw happen with Robinhood. Look what we saw happen, any, I guess you could say, I don't want to say crash in the market, but any event where there was big risk, that often happened because people were doing it on their own.
Yeah.
And what we like to say in the business is that a lot of times when the markets are going up and everybody's doing well, we forget about the risk that is inherent with investing in the markets. And that can be a big deal, if you're doing the wrong thing, if you're not getting professional advice, it can totally derail your financial plan. And that for some people is devastating if you're a wealth creator.
Well, I would just dive into so many questions about how to invest, like the investment strategies and all that. But first about this AI thing, because in marketing, we're gonna just tear apart data. With the tool, with the ability of AI, we can get like 1 million data points so quickly. way beyond anything we've ever had. Like 10 years ago, we would have never been able to figure out a target audience to such a precise, exact, demographics, psychographics, everything. And I would imagine in the financial world, you can use AI in a similar way to like look at this investor and then tear apart everything they could potentially invest in. And the AI would like almost figure out where to put their money based on statistics, based on the market. And then you need the human element to then like evaluate the data, but the data is gathered by the AI.
Yes, and I think that you bring up a good point. The way that most people think about their investments is just stocks, bonds, and cash, which is the way that people create and build wealth. But it's really family, health, and legacy that are driving the investments. And AI is not going to figure that out for you, because while AI is becoming smarter and smarter and we're teaching it to do more things, there's a human element that is lacking in the AI system. So while yes, it could help you build portfolios, analyze risk, find different types of investments, the human element of what are your needs, wants, and wishes, what do you want your money to do for you, that is the element that a financial advisor and the one-to-one relationship really brings to the table.
But Theresa, wouldn't it be more someone wanting human assurance as opposed to what you just said? Because I'm thinking of there's questions that you can ask AI and you can really like tailor it one way or another. I can pretty much give AI my family situation, right? And then have it spit out several different scenarios. So is it that, or is it more, I just need human assurance?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, because you hit on something that I got a great book recommendation from a coach that I work with just 2 days ago, The AI-Driven Leader. And the reason why she said, buy the book in hard copy is because in the book, there are prompts. And the better you are at asking the question, the better the information. So arguably, you could get a pretty good recommendation, but wouldn't you want reassurance that it's accurate? And I think that's the question
100%.
that continues to roll around in people's mind is this right? Is this real? And that we don't know.
See it. I have clients that love playing with ChatGPT and all those things.
So I'm saying you just
but they still
like
call me and they still call me and want to pay me to do their programming and do their strategy and all that. They're not going to do it just because of AI telling them to.
So how do you properly use it?
The way we talked about it the other day, what I do now in my current role is I coach financial advisors on their businesses, on efficiency and process, on growth techniques. And so we were talking about if we wanted to create content to deliver in these coaching situations, we would tell AI to act as a learning development specialist. You don't ask it questions like you would ask a question in a Google search.
Okay.
And that's the key difference. So I haven't got the book yet, so I can't go further than that. But I'm looking to get better at using the tool because it'll help me do my job more quickly. I do a lot of public speaking. I'm in front of a lot of financial advisors. And to be able to formulate something that's going to be impactful for them more quickly is going to give me free time to do, research and reading and preparation. Our number one commodity, no matter who you are, is time.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for the entrepreneurs and people watching this podcast, what's happening with the markets right now? Just overview.
Personally, I think we're in a really interesting position because the markets have, hit all-time highs that we never thought we would achieve. Like Dow 40,000, which we are well above, was something I don't think anybody ever imagined would happen. Now, some people can be on the side of that's concerning to me because markets are cyclical. They will go up and down and up and down. But for a pretty extended period of time, we have seen the markets continue to tick up and, like I said, hit those all-time highs. So it's really about, depending upon where you are, right? If you're a new investor and you're young, you want the most growth that you can achieve as long as you don't need the money for something else. right? And so you have to kind of think about, your money in buckets. And if you've created a lot of wealth over time, your number one goal is to preserve that. So you might look at the markets differently. And it really depends, how much time do you have for retirement? Are you looking to make a business investment? So it's nice to continue to see the market go up, but sitting down and having the conversation about what's going on with you personally and professionally with a financial professional is really important to determine, do you want to stick with what you have? Do you need to make some changes? I just shared with you before we went live, I sat down with my financial advisors today, and those were some of the things that we were discussing. They asked me about specific investments and, are you married to this investment? It's not doing poorly, but there are other alternatives. Since you've started, you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good years. The last couple of years have been good, but it's kind of just puttering along. Do you want to do something else? And we talked about what those options were, and they're going to come back with some ideas, and then I'll make a decision.
How does financial legacy planning change now that people are living longer?
Yeah, so I remember when I worked at my previous firm and it was in asset management, we were talking about preparing for a 30-year retirement. And in some cases, it's going to be even longer than that as we see people living longer and longer. So wealth planning, you heard me talk about health, wealth, and family, right? So of course we want, if we're a wealth creator, we want our wealth to span generations. Fun fact, generational wealth typically doesn't make it to the third generation.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Why?
Because the first generation creates the wealth, and the second generation, because they didn't create it, and if you don't have good planning conversations, they typically spend it down.
Crazy. I have I'm very closely connected with an original American name, right? Brand. Yeah. And you go to their houses, they have 11 Ferraris in their garages. They've never worked a day in their life. Mm-hmm. It's scary how fast they can spend money.
Yeah.
It was just interesting to realize I'm close with a family that experienced that. I would say third generation, because the kids that are my age now is experiencing that, where they're going to be the last group to have that money, because they're going through it so quickly.
How do you prevent that? I mean, my motto: no cash for my kids unless they actually understand what I've done and how I built my wealth. But I mean, that's my response. What's the typical way of handling that?
That is exactly how we are advising clients, and advisors are setting up their clients for success. It starts with education. I remember a story. We had these values cards, and they have pictures on one side and they have words on another. And you can use them in a lot of different ways, but we used to use them with families. And I remember this one family that brought their kids together for a family summit, a family wealth conversation. And the woman picked a picture of running water. And she told the story about how when she was a kid, she couldn't even fill the bathtub up with water because they couldn't afford it. And that meant so much, to her mindset. And while her children were experiencing like exponential, life of luxury, if you will, she really wanted them to know what it took to build the wealth. So having conversations like that are really important. And they're really simple things. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I didn't come from a wealthy family. My dad came here from Italy. He was a postman. My mother worked 2 jobs. I'm the youngest of 4, and I'll never forget the envelope system. Did your parents do envelopes where they put the money in the envelopes for different things?
No, we had some other systems
my parents,
that I'd rather not talk about in our household.
Didn't even have the level of envelopes. We lived in a shack on a farm.
So, teaching from a very young age, and there's lots of tools out there, save, spend, grow. I talked about a bucketing approach even with your investments, but at a young age, we can teach our kids 2 things. And you hit on one before, and that is the only way that you make money is going to work. It's not because somebody's going to give it to you. That is a really, really valuable lesson, no matter if you have nothing or if you have a lot. That is very, very important to avoid that generational wealth deterioration.
I mean, there's got to be something to setting an example, like fathers and mothers, like doing what you say you're going to do
Exactly.
and having them see you provide.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard too, though, because I do see it around us where the parents are working hard. Some of the kids still take it for granted, though.
They do. They do, but you hit the nail on the head. It's, it's the actions, it's the words. And, one thing that my aunt and uncles, my dad's brother and his wife, I admired about them when I watched them, because I didn't see any brothers or sisters grow up. I was the youngest.
Yeah.
So my cousins, they both were, working. They made a decent amount of money, and it didn't matter if they had the money for whatever their kids were asking for, the vacation. And it wasn't, the response to their kids wasn't, we don't have the money for it. It's just, we're not going to spend it on that right now. And they weren't deprived of anything. They had great vacations, but they were what we call in the business good stewards of their wealth. And do you know that if at the age of 25, you started saving $100 every week from, your paycheck, from the time you're 25 till the time you're 65, you'd have roughly $1.2 million. It's $100. Think about
That's crazy.
how quickly you spend $100 today.
Oh my gosh. At
that's
lunch
crazy.
is scary.
Mm-hmm. And so, I have 6 nieces and nephews, all different ages. Most of them are in their 20s. My nephew just went off to college, so he's 18. And I talk about that a lot with them, is the moment, and it was something that my father taught me. He said, it doesn't matter how much you make, you could always save money. You split it a third, a third, a third. And to this day, I do that. And I shared that with them. I said, as soon as you start to make money, make sure that you're saving whatever it is, because that small amount can grow exponentially if you're just consistent in saving.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have the opportunity to invest, right? Like my one niece, she's going to be a nurse, and she's going to have access to retirement plans. Maybe the hospital that she works with will contribute to that. And you have to maximize those things early on. You might, as a young person, think, oh, I'm missing out. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm making money, so I have to spend more money. If you build those good habits early on, you never miss the money. You never miss out on anything. And you don't have to worry about this 30, 40-year retirement. Most firms don't, there's no such thing as a pension anymore.
Yeah.
So, that I think is really, really meaningful is those good habits up front.
I'm teaching my kids.
Go ahead.
I'm teaching my kids. So you talk about the right mindset to begin with, and just making sure that they've developed that so they understand why they're saving. And interestingly enough, I gave them this example of, would you rather have $1 million in cash right now, or would you elect to have a penny every single day compounded for 30 days? And all 3 of my boys were like, this is a trick question. And 2 out of the 3 were like, I'm going to take the penny because for some reason I think that's the answer. And then one of them was like, give me the $1 million. But I actually, I walked them through the math, and they were like shocked, like the power of like compounding, right? Yep. And what that looked like after like 30 days. But it just gave them an awareness level, and just to help them like shift how they look at money. And but I guess the question for you is, save or invest? What do you do? Save or invest?
Both.
Okay.
And it might be hard for some people to do both. But it was very interesting. This executive at our firm was just interviewed by a publication, and I love the way he ended the interview. He said, just start investing. And so maybe it starts with saving, so that you can build a cushion, but putting your money in the bank, you're not really earning anything. Interest rates are very low. I would ask, if you are investing at a bank, local bank, ask them what the yields are. You probably can put it into something that's a little higher yielding, that's not very risky.
But you've got to get this question, Theresa. Investing is risky.
It is risky, but the thing is that any money that you're putting into the market shouldn't be money that you actually need to live. Mm-hmm. And so that's the plan that you have to figure out, is what can you afford to put in the market? Like when Scott and I got married, We were lucky enough to have some nice gifts. We put that money right in the market. I don't remember how much it was. I don't remember how much I didn't get to spend.
The Italian busta.
It's just growing, right? It's just growing.
Yeah.
And so, maybe it feels more comfortable for people to save first, but back to what I said before about the retirement accounts, that's both. You're saving and investing at the same time. So maybe that's a great place for people to start, is with 401ks, IRAs, retirement type assets, because the wealth is growing because it's invested in the markets. And risk has to do with time horizon, right? So we talked about buckets: liquidity, longevity, legacy. Liquidity is money you're not going to take a lot of risk with.
Yeah.
You're not going to take a lot of risk. You might be using that. Like, I have the cousin who I mentioned, his mother and father, he had recently gotten married. They haven't bought a house yet. And he's in his liquidity bucket. He's got the money he's going to use to buy a house. And there's never going to be a great time, and there's never a perfect mortgage rate. You just have to figure it out and go for it, and not put yourself in a difficult situation. But I really encouraged him in that longevity bucket to take a lot of his risk there, because he's young. He's going to be 30 years old September in
What's
just
the
about a
interest
month.
rate right now?
Terrible.
Like what? What's the number about?
I mean, so we're hovering like high sixes, maybe mid sixes now. But
Okay.
I agree with what you're saying, Theresa.
Yeah.
There's stop trying to time the markets.
Yeah.
And I think there's a
No.
lot of investors with that mindset. Like the whole concept of like day trading. I mean, I can't sit in front of a computer and like, hey, I made one day and I lost another day, which is why I stuck to real estate. I mean, I dabbled in a lot of different things, and then I predominantly went back to what created my wealth, because there was more predictability and consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike some of the investments in the market, like with real estate, if there's going to be a dip, it's not going to happen within 24 hours.
Yeah. And that's the difference between paper investments.
Yes.
And that's investing in the stock market
Yes.
and hard assets.
Yeah. But could someone survive? And I mean, I have my answer to this, but I want to hear from your perspective. Can someone survive and live now beyond the average age of whatever that is nowadays by just saving? Is that even possible?
Well, with inflation, I don't know. And that's why you see a lot of people who have retired go back to work, get second jobs, or continue to work into their 70s. I mean, I certainly don't want to be doing that, but it all, it's circumstantial. I don't want to say, they didn't save enough. What were their circumstances, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the number is something like $30 trillion is going to change hands in like the next 10 years. 10 trillion will go to inheritors, and 18 trillion will go to
crazy.
charity. It's a lot of money, but it's a very small population of people that
baby
change
boomer
hands.
generation's going to
Yes.
move on.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, but there's a lot of people who aren't the beneficiary of that. And so I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that we can put ourselves in certain situations if we are looking for good opportunities and we are disciplined.
So if we were to look at different investment types, like you have real estate, the stock market, but mutual funds, whole life policies, like what are some of the best things to look at, especially if you're not like
Savvy.
into it already? Yeah, savvy. Like the people maybe watching this, like, okay, what do I look at? What are some good things to be smart about?
Yeah. And so by no way are these recommendations.
Yes.
But the types of vehicles
Yes.
Yeah.
that people can gain access to. The easiest way when you're starting out are ETFs, exchange traded funds. They trade like stocks, and they have their tax treatment is also like stocks. In a mutual fund, it's a pooled investment, so it can be a little less favorable depending upon the situation. But what they do, each of those investments, is they give you exposure to a wide range of investments. Single stock versus a basket of investments is always going to be more risky. right? And
Right.
you're going to
Sure.
go
And
up
that's
and
the
down.
mutual fund, and that's the single stock.
This is the stock, this is the mutual fund or ETF. So a lot of investors on the ETF side of things are buying index-like investments, and they track pretty closely to the market. And that gives you a really broad base investment. So that's likely the best way to get diversification, which is really what you're talking about. You don't want to be concentrated in any one area, because that's what kind of smooths out the returns and takes the number one contributor to wealth deterioration is emotions,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah, I can see
Because
that.
the market starts to go down and everybody's like, I gotta pull my
Sell,
money
sell,
out.
sell. Buy, 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 buy,
Right.
buy. Yeah.
And but then we don't know when to go back into the market. So, you talked about it before, and I talked about it as well, is making sure that your risk profile aligns with your time horizon and you're not taking on too much risk. I mean, yeah, it feels really good to make a lot of money when things are going well, but you have to really think about that risk profile.
So the risk versus your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
For our viewers, maybe they're young families, people that are trying to like aggressively, entrepreneurial spirit to make money for their family, maybe start their own business. What should they be watching? What should they be listening to?
Well, I do think there's a lot of ways to get advice. And I think the two best ways would be, number one, through your employer. Retirement accounts, they have people, financial counselors, financial wellness that go along with the benefit package, right? So if you can't afford a financial advisor, that's one way to get guidance and advice. What does your employer provide for you? If you're a small business owner, that might not be available to you. So if you can, a lot of firms have an economical way to get advice. At my old firm, they called it the Wealth Advice Center. At my current firm, we call it Investment Central. These tend to be clients who are just getting out, starting investing. They may not have a lot of money, but they can get really good advice on what are their options, how should they invest. And so I think there's a lot more opportunity today than there has been in the past of getting professional advice and not maybe necessarily having a financial advisor.
At what point does someone approach a financial advisor?
I would say, there are always instances where we may come into a larger sum of money. Could be your first bonus payment. Could be getting married. It could be, that next promotion up. So I don't know if there's a perfect point for everybody, but again, back to mindset and discipline. If you set yourself up for success and you feel like you're confident enough to start the conversation, there are options out there. Even local banks have folks that will talk wealth management with you at a discounted rate.
So don't inherit $1 million and head to Vegas.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah, that's another inflection point, right?
Don't take TikTok advice. I mean, there's a lot of experts online now, right?
There are. And I know we were chatting a little bit about, AI and whatnot. And so there's good advice out there and there's not so good advice. It's really having, a trusted network of people. Maybe it's a family friend that isn't in the business but has had experience with investing. I think everybody can find someone that can give them the advice that's appropriate for them, no matter where they are on their journey.
Let's circle back for a second to longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Planning. What are people doing? I mean, we're sort of navigating into uncharted territory, right? Because we haven't really seen the average creep up to like 90, 100. So what do we do?
Well, I think one thing that we're seeing in the business now is what we call the sandwich generation. And these are high earners in their 40s and 50s who still have kids who are in school, but are also caring for aging parents. You just raised your hand, right? Yeah. And they actually will also be the largest inheritors of that wealth transfer that I talked about. So there's a really big opportunity there for education and support for that individual, right? Because they want to continue to grow their own wealth, but what type of support might they need to provide to their parents if they didn't plan? So longevity planning is becoming more and more part of the conversation, even for that sandwich generation at 50 years old, because we know they're going to live longer. But for even people in their 60s, because dementia, the number of people who have dementia is on the rise. I think it was probably, 2025. So it was likely 2018. I remember sitting with one of my colleagues who works for a provider that sells long-term care. And in 2018, she was encouraging the financial advisors to start asking the question of people who may have just, graduated their kids from college. How are you going to save an additional $150,000, $200,000 per year for healthcare costs? That was in 2018.
Oh my God.
That cost has skyrocketed. So in-home care, long-term care insurance to go into a home.
You say $250,000 a year?
A year.
Wow.
And that cost is only going up. So that's what we're talking about with longevity planning. And, it's part of those family conversations. It's not just, building and creating wealth. It's having the conversation with, whomever you might be caring for about how do they want to live in retirement. I had the opportunity this earlier part of the year to go to the MIT Age Lab.
Wow.
On the MIT campus.
Oh, that'd been cool.
So there's a whole MIT Age Lab that studies aging and what it looks like and how will you live in retirement. And there's like easy questions like, who are you going to go and get lunch with? How are you going to change the light bulb? I mean, all questions that nobody thinks about, but can lead to conversations about social issues, right? Like as you get older, your social circle gets smaller. That can lead to depression. You want to make sure, maybe you don't live close to your parents. You don't. And so how are they going to create that network? It might be better for them to go into an assisted living where they have that network. Mom, you want to stay and live in your house? How are you going to do all these things around the house, right? And opening their eyes to what they need to plan for, what they need to save for, and the realities of just living longer.
It's got to be a difficult conversation.
Yeah. It could be fun too, though. So actually, at the MIT Age Lab, they had a couple executives from Viking Cruises.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that actually the Viking Cruises were somewhat built for retirees and that group of people. So all of the cabins and, the showers and the way you get around the ship are built for people who are in older age to make it really easy to move around. And there's not a lot of risk in falling and, something bad happening. And I just thought that was really cool, just thinking about how you would age and have some fun too. It's not just about dying and getting old. It's about enjoying and living through retirement. And I found that experience really, really impactful.
It's funny. I read something a while ago where this retired couple decided to it was the entire year. They were just cruising. And the amount of money that they spent cruising for the entire year was not that far off from just renting a home. Selling their stuff, renting a home and whatever retirement community. And I'm like, look at that. That's what retirement should be, right? Go and enjoy life, not sit there and wait. How many years do I have left?
It's such an interesting conversation to go because as an entrepreneur, you get taught, maybe 3 streams of income. And then you're like, okay, wait, no, you need 7 streams of income, through different pathways to be making money. But then there's the whole conversation of living out life. And it's like, what should your investments be? And how should you break up that portfolio? It's such an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Is this place that you said what did you call it? The Raymond James, there's like a place you can go online.
Oh, Investment Central.
Investment Central. Is that literally for anybody that can go to that for tips or something? Or
not even for advice for sure. It's a call center
it's a call center
for lack of a better term, right?
Okay.
You might not sit face to face, but they are professionals who are registered and licensed to guide you on, smaller, I would say, smaller pools of money until you can work up to maybe working one-on-one with a financial advisor.
And that's like a subscription thing?
Most, no matter if you're in this investment central type category or one-on-one with an advisor, it's a fee-based relationship.
Okay.
So you pay a fee for the assets, and typically there's a sliding scale for that.
Gotcha.
So things are evolving, right? You have to constantly, like I'm a licensed broker in New York. I'm licensed in Florida. I'm licensed in California, and I'm constantly like renewing licenses, even though I have them for like various reasons. But I'm predominantly an investor, right? Like that's my hat.
Mm-hmm.
As a financial advisor, or you're in like wealth management, do you constantly have to do continuing education? I mean, I imagine the markets like are constantly shifting, right? So it's very different than when you first started.
Yeah. And so there's industry continuing education that we do for the regulators. Depending upon what types of licenses you have to do continuing education every year, certain number of hours. So it depends on your license. And then, most of the firms require you to also do internal continuing education. Sometimes those focus a little bit more on client relations and what you can do, what you can't do, what to watch out for. We just talked about longevity and, exploitation of elders is a real thing. We have a whole compliance module on that. So, staying up to date, if you're a CFP professional, certified financial professional, financial planner, excuse me, there's a lot of continuing education.
You want to say that again?
Yeah. If you're a CFP professional, so certified financial planner, there's a lot of continuing education that you have to do. And that has to do with estate, taxable, and charitable planning and all the rules that change. But also there's an ethics piece of it. And there's also an ethics piece with insurance. So any financial professional that has these licenses and designations has to constantly keep up with all the rules and regulations. And that's a very good thing for the consumer.
This is such a great conversation to me. And I think, is there a way to summarize for everybody watching or listening? They want to start investing now. Like I would be I'm more enthusiastic to be a smarter investor from us having this conversation. So for everybody watching.
And a planner, right?
And planning myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a planner. I want to plan for your
But
I want to know how to plan myself. But how can you summarize, if we're sitting having a cup of coffee for everybody watching, what do we need to do to be a smart investor?
Aside from say start, because I know you're going to say start.
Get started. Find a way to educate yourself first on, some basic education. There's a lot of tools and resources out there that you can get access to online, through universities, again, through your employer. Educate yourself on what is out there. What types of benefits do you have access to? And then you just have to determine, what you're going to save, what you're going to spend, and what you're going to give. And saving can be in the bank, and saving can be investing in the market.
Let's hit her with some of those quick questions.
All right.
Go.
What do you like doing on your pastime?
Working out.
All right.
Working out. My two sons are soccer players, so I really do enjoy watching, honestly, all sports, but it's great to see them. I'm a competitor at my core, so I love just watching them get better and better. And family. Unfortunately, I don't live as close to my family as I wish I did, but I've inherited a few families here that make it feel like home. And that's really important, is having people around, sharing a meal, breaking bread. So we'll have to get those Sunday dinners on the calendar.
Yeah,
for sure.
Love it.
What's a great book you've read recently?
A great book that I have read recently. I would say I'm a leader, so a lot of the books that I read are on leadership. The last one that I read was Never Lead Alone.
Who's that by?
Keith Ferrazzi.
Okay.
Really interesting individual, big in Silicon Valley, works with a lot of startup companies, business owners, etc. So don't think of it as like corporate leadership. The concept of the book was fantastic. It was about a term he calls co-elevation. And the whole theme of like never lead alone is that it's not the leader's responsibility only to lead the team. It's everyone's responsibility.
Love it.
So people's success, it's not enough if Joe, you and I, that we work together, that I'm doing well, but you're struggling. It's my job, even if I'm not the leader, to help you fill the gaps. And I loved that. And he talks about rewriting the contract of how you'll communicate, how you'll work with one another, and how you'll lift each other up. And he talks a lot about where we started, which is asynchronous collaboration through technology. Because otherwise, if we're spending all this time in conversation and meetings, we're wasting time. And he really pushes, the technology, and he's big into, you can pretty much work anywhere. The team doesn't have to be together all of the time. But I love that theme of co-elevation.
I love it. Favorite vacation spot?
That's a tough one between beaches and ski mountains. But I would say Park City, Utah. I've never actually been there in the summer or the spring, and I'm dying to go.
Okay, you're the second person, by the way, that's told me that in the past 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
There's a lot of arts and culture. Sundance Film Festival is there every year. Lots of great restaurants. I like to eat. I'm Italian. And the skiing is what me and my family go for. But I have heard that in the spring and the summer, it's just a fantastic place. So that would be my number one.
Favorite movie?
I'm going to have to say, What About Bob?
What about Bob?
I've never even heard of that.
I've heard of it, but I don't even know.
It's a family one that we have a lot of fun, reciting lines, and it's just a funny, feel good movie that I think if I think back on all my years, it was just one that the family watched kind of over and over, and it's a silly movie about this crazy patient and a psychiatrist and how he kind of keeps coming back to haunt the psychiatrist, and he's trying to have like this great weekend on Lake Winnipesaukee. But just a reminder that we're all human, and we need that support, and we have to just kind of break down the barriers sometimes. So I would say that's one of my favorites.
That's hilarious. That's like Back to the Future and the Faraci family. Everybody recites lines.
Yeah, totally. We're always reciting lines. I love it. This was an awesome conversation. And I can appreciate that we're just having dialogue. The subject matter of finance is a very difficult one to confront, right? I can sort of see why. At the same time, I've been around it my whole life. And this is what I'm imparting in my own children, so that it's not something that needs to be put to the wayside. Like it's, you should be able to confront it. You should be able to, talk about it. I guess my last question for you is, how easy is it for families to confront talking about the subject of like finance, and then children with their parents and talking about how the estate should be done correctly? Like how, is that?
Well, you hit on something that I was hoping that we would talk about, and I'll be brief about it, I think people are afraid of finance because they feel like it's so complex and it's hard to understand, but it's really not when you break it down to its most basic level, like you did, the compounding, like I did, the envelopes, save, spend, give. It's those little lessons that I think if you start them early, it makes it easier to talk about. Now, if you're in, I talk about two buckets, wealth creator and wealth inheritor. I think the conversations get more difficult if you're in this wealth inheritor bucket. They're hard for the parents and they're hard for the kids because of the reasons that we discussed is, how much is too much? Do we want to know, and do we want the kids to know that we have all this wealth and what it means? And I will applaud the financial professionals in the industry because they too have trepidation about broaching that subject, but more and more of them are providing support for families to just start and have that conversation. Annual family summits. There's lots of great books out there. Blue Chip Kids is a really great one for kids to learn about the stock market, lots of illustrations. So there's a lot more access to that. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't have to do it alone. Just find some resources. It could be just really easy, taking your kids to the bank when you're doing your banking, or, make them part of it from as young an age as possible. And then progressively, as time goes on, they'll hit different points. They're going to need a credit card. They're going to need to open the savings account. They're going to get their first mortgage. All these things are opportunities. They're kitchen table conversations.
Yeah.
They're all opportunities. You don't have to be invested with a financial advisor. These are all things that everybody has lived through. So every person listening has had these experiences, and just sharing that experience with your children or your family will help them learn to make better decisions. And that's how we're going to continue to build wealth as a society for everybody.
Great advice. Love it. Love it. I totally agree. I think the earlier you can have those types of conversations with your kids, then the smoother the transition, and it just becomes the norm, just part and parcel of everyday life. Great advice. Love it.
It's great having you with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Fantastic show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the latest episode of the 8th Gear Podcast. Great to have you with us. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notifications button so you see future episodes. See you next time.